So we've got a great afternoon lined up for you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jenny Danson, Associate Director with DIN. I'm the Network Director for Ian, so I'm the main point of contact for anything Ian. The two main people you'll be hearing from today are David Bide and Andrew Burgess, who are the experts in all things to do around intelligent automation and artificial intelligence, and we'll introduce those to you shortly. So we'll just look at now what we'll be covering in the next 75 minutes. I'll do some housekeeping and scene setting, then over to David and Andrew to get us kicked off about what is intelligent automation and what is artificial intelligence. So please feel free to ask questions as we go along in these sections, and I'll explain how to shortly. David and Andrew will then share some case studies to provide context. Then we will share what the other half of the Ian network did this morning. And there'll be a lot more opportunity to ask questions. And then finally, I'll go through what the network looks like for next year. So lots to go through, but before we get started, I just want to ensure you're all familiar with the Zoom platform. So if you see the numbers on the screen in front of you, if I just go through them for those of you that aren't familiar, we've got the mute and unmute button here. So to be able to click to mute and unmute yourselves, if you could just stay muted while you're not talking, then it will just keep the background noise down. That'll be great. We've got the video here. This is where you can present your webcam to present a video feed. We'd really like it if you can keep your webcams on if your broadband allows that, because we want it to be as interactive as possible. So it's always good to see faces. Three the participants, so you can select this icon to present. Oh, there's just a couple of other people just going to get them in.
I'll do those, Jenny.
Oh, brilliant, thank you. So yeah, the participants, you select this icon and you present a list of the other attendees on the right hand side of the screen. 4 is a chat function, so we really hope you use this to select this icon to open the chat window on the right hand side of your screen, and this will allow you to send messages to the entire group or directly to myself, Andrew and David, who are the hosts for this. Then there's the chat function, which is number 5, and if you click this drop down menu to select host to send a message to that person, only the host can see it. And the participant list on the right hand side, your name will appear on this participant list. If your microphone icon next to your name is black, you are unmuted, and if it's red with a line through it, you're muted. Similar, if your camera's black, you're projecting your webcam, and if it's with a red line through it, you are not projecting. Throughout this network, we want to get your thoughts and opinions on what Andrew, David and your fellow participants are saying and thinking. So how do we do this? Well, at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a participants button. If you click it, and by doing so, you'll see various choices to give non-verbal feedback. So if we can have a go at doing that now, can you all click on the raise hand function so we can just see how that works? Brilliant. So Dean and Claire, Hassan, Scott, Carol, thank you. Okay, you can also see other icons on there. That's great, thank you. So you can have the thumbs up or thumbs down. Give people a round of applause if you want to. You can even tell us if you're popping out for a coffee. So throughout this network, we'll be asking you to use these reactions to indicate your response to a particular question or a statement. So either use the chat function or use these, because it really helps from a presenting point of view to get that feedback. So just a reminder then, if you want to ask a question, if you raise your hand, if you have a question, and we'll then unmute you to be able to speak. Using the chat function to submit your questions and post your comments. And just to let you know, we are recording this session for colleagues that couldn't make it today, and obviously you can then view it at a later time too. So we'll just have a quick look through about what is Ian. So Ian is a network of like-minded people that believe that the delivery of housing services can be enhanced for our tenants and colleagues whilst being better value for money and a better experience for all, and a lot of fun along the way. So AI and IA are new to the sector and newer to some members more than others. So as a result of the survey and feedback during and after the original Ian launch presentation, we split the network into 2. So this one is for beginners, and then we had one this morning for the more advanced. Colleagues that are on the more advanced are more just that they've actually started their journey into this and are actively either installing or in the process of installing AI and IA, or both. And there will be occasions through the network next year where we'll be having joint sessions where we bring the two networks together. So why do we think that Ian is needed? Well, reason one, we believe, and I know that intelligence automation and artificial intelligence, the same as you, can be hugely beneficial to the housing sector. As you were interested enough to be here and possibly just started dabbling in this area, this network aims to accelerate your adoption of wherever you are on that journey and beyond. Reason two, we believe at DIN that experimental and discovery learning are the best way to get innovation into housing. This is at the heart of what we do in DIN and through this Ian network. This can be accelerated and much cheaper when we do this together in focused networks like this, rather than each trying to do this alone in our respected organisations. And reason three, COVID has changed a number of things, but it's also not changed in some areas enough. Recent research by the CLG showed that councils had innovated much better during the pandemic to date than housing, with a view shared by many within the technology sector that social housing providers are 5 years plus behind where they should be. IA and AI are commonly used technologies outside of the sector, and we as a sector must embrace them to deliver better solutions for tenants and colleagues alike. So what can you expect? Well, we've got a whole load of great stuff to share with you and delivered in a variety of ways. We've got 8 sessions next year, offering a combination of explainer sessions where you'll be immersing you in the topics so you can make informed decisions, workshops so you've got an opportunity to collaborate, share ideas and solve challenges, and speaker and panel sessions with a focus on learning from outside of sector. And through the network, you'll also get refusal on the DIN labs we'll be running on AI and IA. These labs will be running on a number of different areas in DIN and are focused on rapid prototyping, allowing a crowdfunding approach to solve problems. There will be an additional cost for these, and we will share more information with you on these next year. So it's worth remembering if you're setting your budgets soon. So we've got a list of the key themes and priorities in there, and as you can see, we've got a lot to share with you and hopefully for you to share with us. We will increase your knowledge and understanding to see the art of the possible in housing, then work with you to get the buy-in and show the benefits. It's hugely exciting and I can't wait to get started. So I'll hand over now to David and Andrew. So Andrew, are you kicking?
Sorry, okay, yep. Let me, sorry, I thought David was going to go first.
Oh.
Yes.
Sorry, hello, there's me. Rule number 1 of Zoom, come off mute. Right, can everybody see my screen?
Can.
We can see a nice stream.
A nice stream.
A mountain stream rather than
the slides. Give me a second. Change screens.
That's it.
Just be loading, and you can see me now, right?
Great, yeah.
Excellent. So, hi guys, nice to meet you all virtually. As I was saying to the team this morning, this is the ideal session for a sort of face-to-face workshop session, really. It's a bit of a shame that COVID is making us do this one all remotely, but we're looking to bring together a really great network of people like myself and Andrew, but obviously very enthusiastic companies from across the housing sector. So my name is David Biden. I'm the CEO and a founder of a company called Human Plus. I'll come on to a bit more about who we are and what we do in a minute. I'm also the managing director of a company called, managing director of automation for a company called Foundry 4. And I've had a couple of other consultancy businesses previous to that, Not Binary Methods Digital, all focused on sort of digital transformation within the public sector in some way, shape or form. I was named in a book a while back about digitising government, having done it for about 10 to 15 years now in all different guises, ways, shapes and forms. Previous to that, my background was investment banking and retail banking, mostly on the technology side of things. It's quite interesting how the technology is pretty much the same in most banks to what it is in central government. A lot of them are still running off green screens and mainframes and things like that, and find it particularly hard to migrate to the cloud and do digital transformation well. Yeah, and as it says here, I've been sort of working on digital and automation strategies for a number of organisations, which I'll come on to detail in a minute, in the public sector. And really, there's three main areas that we work in. It's housing, education and health. So lots and lots going on with the NHS actually at the moment that I'm going to take you through in a moment. So what we're here to do today is explain a bit about what robotic process automation, intelligent automation and artificial intelligence is. I've got a little video at the moment which helps sort of clarify that. And we'll take you through some of the stuff that we've been doing with the advanced session this morning. Open to any questions. We've got about 20 minutes, I believe, at the end for questions. So we can run through some of that stuff. But if anyone's got a particularly pressing question, feel free to put your hands up and I can get to that as we go through. So robotic process automation, RPA, that is really the most basic form of automation. It can be described as a bunch of IFTTT commands, if this, then that, in its real most basic form. There's lots of platforms out there at the moment. We're not going to go through all those different platforms, but just to list a few, it's Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, UiPath, Microsoft are getting into the RPA space as well. And there's a bunch of other smaller ones. Some are open source, some are paid for SaaS platforms and things like that. We're not really talking about the technology at this session today, but if anybody does want any information, advice or guidance on that, then feel free to get in touch with Jenny or myself and we can do that separately. So robotic process automation really focuses on taking away sort of mundane processes from humans. It's a push and pull of data or information across multiple systems in most cases. Now, intelligent automation, which is where most people are at the moment in the market, is a combination of that RPA, but with some additional AI elements. So natural language processing, optical character recognition, things like that in it. A lot of the platforms nowadays have those built into them. And really RPA and intelligent automation are the first steps towards artificial intelligence. It gets people thinking about how machines and algorithms and things like that can be working for them and with them. So I'm not going to steal Andrew's thunder. I'll let him talk about artificial intelligence a bit later, but that's really that's a suite of thinking. It's not one tool or one process or anything like that. And as I said, many people start with RPA, move on to intelligent automation, and then really go on to artificial intelligence. So we've got a couple of case studies around rent arrears and things like that that are very pertinent about how some housing associations are using RPA and then moving right through to artificial intelligence in the rent arrears space. So RPA is often used to replace highly manual processes. It really came out of the banking sector. Barclays Bank about 15 years ago, there was a bunch of guys there that basically invented RPA. They've now gone on to form a very successful company called Blue Prism, worth billions of pounds, very clever guys. And really the story is it actually came out of PPE. So, sorry, not PPE. The PPI, so where the banking crisis was going on there, and basically Barclays Bank worked out that what they can't control is the amount they're going to have to pay back to their customers. That was a given, that's legal, but they were going to have to hire about 150 people to transact those claims. Well, the guys invented robotic process automation there, and they realized that they would now only have to employ around 50 people in that contact center to reply to those. So it was an absolute huge saving for those guys because it was a highly manual, highly repeatable process. So when I talk about highly manual, there needs to be a low exception rate as well. Anything that's rules based. So we were speaking with a parking company yesterday, and they have a big contact center, and they have a book of rules basically, which is, okay, well, if it's a white van, these are the instructions on what to do. If it's in this car park, this is what you do. And it's basically a bunch of if this, then that commands for humans to do. Very boring, very mundane work that they're looking to automate there. We've got another one here. There's a digital trigger and structured. So there needs to be a digital trigger to kick off robotic process automation. A lot of what we find when we go into organizations is a lot of processes start with paper. NHS Wales that we're working with at the moment, their process starts with a doctor's handwritten prescription, which you can imagine what that looks like. Well, what we've done is we've helped to digitize that part of the process first before then going on to RPA and robotic process automation. We often find this is where RPA and digital transformation go hand in hand as well. if you know what you're looking for, as you're doing sort of scoping workshops and things like that around digital transformation, you can often ask a few extra questions, and then you'll be able to work out what can actually be automated as part of that transformation as well. High volume, as I said, this originated in Barclays Bank. It's telcos were the second sort of biggest sector as well that have taken this on, but it's generally suited to high volume processes. I don't think there's a single customer I've got at the moment that we're not automating their invoice process for at the moment, because it's something that nobody sort of went to university to rubber stamp invoices, and is pretty mundane, repetitive, and high volume. One or more systems. So speaking to a lot, we've got about 6 or 7 projects, intelligent automation projects in the housing sector happening at the moment. And one of the things that we're often asked is about housing management systems. They don't seem to have been invested in the last decade. Nobody likes the one they've got, from what I can tell. I'm no housing expert. I've been doing this for about 18 months in the housing sector. I've heard all the stories of Northgate and Capita and Orchard and all the rest of it. Take your pick. And many people are sort of looking at whether they should move to Dynamics and many other things like that. But what we're looking at for some of those clients is where automation, intelligent automation, comes into play with moving your house onto a different housing management system, in some cases building your own. You shouldn't use external automation tools to automate things in one system. If you've got Dynamics, something like that, it can generally be automated within that system. It's only when you've got multiple systems that you really need intelligent automation. Otherwise, it's a bit of a sledgehammer to crack a nut. High error likelihood. So again, another housing provider that we're working with at the moment, we're doing boiler, gas and servicing checks is what we're automating the screening of the certificates and things like that. It's reducing the human error in that process is really the goal, rather than reducing cost or anything like that. We work a lot with the NHS at the moment, and there's a case study that I'll come on to in a moment about the COVID SITREP process, again, which is centered around lowering the human error value in counting the COVID numbers. So no frequent changes, rules or steps or processes. So you can only really apply intelligent automation to fairly rigid processes, nothing that's going to have rules changing each day and things like that. So what I've got here is a bit of a video of intelligent automation in action. So can you just give me a physical hands up if you can see that playing? Awesome, thank you. So this is a fairly simple intelligent automation application. So this is a new joiner process for a company that you can see there. So what's happened here is somebody has filled out the new joiner form on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side is sort of under the hood of the intelligent automation tool. In this case, it's one that's called Blue Prism. As you can tell, it looks a bit like Visio. To do a lot of automation, you don't really need to be a full developer. It uses what they call point and click development. So on the left-hand side, the bot is running through this, this new joiner form at the moment. What it's doing is exactly what the human used to do. It's scanning through to make sure it's got all of the information, it's been filled out correctly. This one hasn't. So as you can see now, it's going to store it in a temporary folder. And what it's going to do, it's going to open up an email and it's going to write back to that person to basically request the missing information. So that's the bot typing the email there based on the information that it's found that is missing within the application form. It will send it off. And as I say, it will store that in a temporary folder to say, well, these ones aren't completed yet. We're waiting for a response back. And when it gets that response, it will match the names to the application and it will go and then continue that process. So what it's now doing is going to pick up another one. And obviously this can be applied to anything. This just happens to be new joiner forms, but if it's comments forms, complaints forms, anything like that, it would work in exactly the same way. So what it's going to do now, it's going to go through and read the form. And obviously, so this has been slowed down about 130 times. The bot is obviously quite a lot faster than this, but just for our human eyes to make sure that you can see it, we've slowed it down. And it's going through, and now what it's going to do is this one is completed correctly. So it's going to kick off the rest of the process. And the rest of that process is exactly what the human in this team used to do in HR. Just finish, let it finish.
David, Hassan's got his hand up. Hassan, have you got a question?
No, that was just to say that I could see the screen from
All right,
previous.
sorry. Don't worry.
Still up from that. Apologies.
No, that's all right, no problem. We'll let it play. Great, so what it's going to do now is it's going to go through Oh, hang on. I've started the video again accidentally. Give me a second. Oh, good. Give me a second. I won't blame Hassan.
I know, I feel bad now.
You've thrown me off, Hassan. Give me a second. Right. So now what it's going to do, it's going to go through, it's going to finish reading that form, and it's going to do what the human would do. So it's going to go into the finance system and it will update, okay, this person's starting on this date. This is how much they should be paid. This is who their line manager is going to be. It will then go into the HR system and say, okay, this is what the team that the person is going to go in, and update all of their next of kin details and things like that. It will then fire off an email to IT to say the person's going to start on this date, they work in this team and they're of this grade, therefore their laptop spec should be X. Please can you have it waiting for them at reception on this date? And then it will fire off one to security as well to say, hey, they work in this team, can they have a pass that lets them into these areas, and so on and so forth. So that just gives you a bit of an idea about how the bots work. It always helps to be able to see these things visually. As you can see here, it's racing through, adding all of the details, really just extracting it from that original form that it's had. It's not creating any information here. It's not creating any additional data sources either. It's just putting it into the systems that already exist.
And is this in real time, David, as well?
No, this has been slowed down. So you effectively wouldn't see this really, because it would just happen in the back. I mean, you can slow them down and watch them. There's no problem. We'd have a process for NHS Wales that we've built at the moment, which they do watch some of them, and they do all the final checks. So it's for cancer and rheumatology drugs. We've automated that pharmacy process that 12 pharmacists used to do, and they now focus on sort of the value add, as it were, at the end of speaking to the organisation. So they do watch them, but most people would just let this run in the background. You then have a dashboard which has exceptions. So any that haven't passed for any reason, you would then interrogate that, and that's where the human would step in into any exceptions. I'm going to stop this. You kind of get the idea. It's just going to race through the rest of it now. But that is intelligent automation in action. Any questions at this point before I move on?
I suppose on that, they're not just working 9 till 5 either, is it? I suppose.
No, exactly. So as part of any intelligent automation project, what you would do at the start is calculate multiple. Well, how we normally run them is we would go in and we'd run a bunch of workshops to say, okay, what would you like to automate? A lot of people start in HR and finance and customer services because they're back office processes that can return investment, but generally it's within your domain. You have total control. It doesn't need to have anything that involves the customer in it. And then what they do is once they've got up to speed, they know it, they've picked the right technology, they understand it better, they then move on to customer facing processes, which are all about improving the customer experience. How can automation improve the customer experience from that original digital trigger right through to the process being delivered? So as you say, Jenny, the bots work 24/7. What most people do is they'd normally buy, say 5 is the average, 5 digital workers for organizations of your size. And these digital workers, you sort of think of them as a small team, because what they do, one digital worker doesn't just do one process. For instance, you could say, oh, right, okay, so we've got Spike every day every month on the 25th, we need to run payroll. So all 5 workers will go into the finance systems and process payroll. They would then stop on the 26th once that's done, and they would go back to HR and start processing these application forms, or then they'd go into IT once they've done those. And you'd be able to schedule them based on priority. You might have something where complaints, as I know that you guys are going to have new rules around them. You need to be replying within 48 hours. So we need to make sure that if ever a complaint comes into a complaints inbox or a complaint form is filed online, that needs to be picked up as a #1 priority. So the bot will always prioritize those things and do your HR and finance stuff in the background. It's very, very simple to do when you start off, because you generally only start in one team. It's when you progress and there's a bit of a dogfight that says my thing's more important than your thing, is when you have to watch out and sort of really get a handle on the scheduling and things like that.
Right. We've got a couple of questions. So Chris, do you want to ask yours?
Yeah. Hi, David. It's a great introduction. You referred to that as intelligent automation. So that's not I will say kind of that's not just the RPA stuff. That has also got some of the intelligence built in. What makes that kind of difference from just a process flow, more RPA?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's really that optical character recognition where it's reading the form. So rather than just taking data from a static system, that it hasn't just been pushed, that data, if you see what I mean. There's been rules added to it, and it said, if you read this field and it has X in it, do Y. So I'd say that's where the crossover is from RPA to intelligent automation.
Great. And Justine.
Hi, sorry, it was just a quick question because you talk about high volume, but is there a kind of a lower barrier on what that might be?
There is. So there's a process that we just finished, it's public, so don't mind me saying, for Flagship Homes, which is around an asset and liability register. They didn't have one that was sort of very central to them. So what they wanted to do is create an asset and liability register, basically. So taking multiple bits of data from multiple different systems. And what we found was they have a process for doing it at the moment, but it was very complex and it took the person an hour to do each one. So normally, yes, you tackle high volume things first, but in that case, because it was taking a person an hour to do it rather than a simple 1 minute thing, the business case stacked up because it was obviously multiple hours across the year to what really amounted to a lot of copying and pasting into one central area. So I suppose, sorry, to directly answer it, there isn't a minimum. It's just that mostly to get a better return on investment, you would aim for high transactional areas, but complex, low volume ones make the business case stack up as well.
Great. Okay, and that's questions at the moment, I think.
Thank you. So a few quick case studies. I think I'm doing okay for time at the moment. So this one here is another housing association that we've been working with. It's around council tax invoice processing. Now they're London based, so they deal with sort of all 42 boroughs, I think it is, in London. And they obviously council tax time comes once a year, and they used to hire a lot of temporary staff to deal with that. And what we did, we took a look at multiple processes. They're a big organisation, so they have multiple processes just in their procurement team. And we selected this one just as a proof of value. They'd never done RPA before. They didn't know if it was right for them. It was a bit, I don't really want to sign up to a massive thing without knowing if this is going to work for us. So what the POVs do is they sort of give you an idea of what tech to choose without spending too much money, because you can just buy one bot. It gives you an idea to test out the partner and things like that, so people like us. But it also gets you get to sort of test what the reaction from the organisation is like. Automation can be a very emotive subject. We're working with a lot of people that think the robots are going to burst through the door, take all their jobs. That is not the case if you're doing it correctly. And if you are sort of thinking of wiping out swathes of people, we're probably not the right ones to work with, because it doesn't work. We have had people try it before. I can go into detail about that another time, but that's not really the idea of automation. So with these guys, we did a proof of value. It took 3 months, this proof of value, from when we started to when we finished. We chose one borough to automatically process the council tax invoices for. It was actually very, very timely because it was at the start of the first lockdown. And one of the things we realised is they all went to work from home, but all the paper-based council tax assessors was turning up at the office. So someone had to don a mask, venture into London, and go and pick them all up. So we also looked at that as a bit of digital transformation as well, and how we can convert those to PDF email format so that the bot can pick them up. So we chose that. We designed, built, tested, and implemented it with them. And really in these proof of values, it's all about the learning. So we work with our clients to upskill them as much as we possibly can in automation, especially the people that are looking to take this forward for many years to come. If you're a large enough organization and warrant it, and you want to do a lot of automation, I would suggest building your own center of excellence. That can be 1 to 2 people. They're all different shapes and sizes depending on how much you're going to go for it. But this provided a nice proof of value for those guys. It's quick, 3 months. They got £86,000 worth of savings because we put this into live for them at the end of that 3 months. And it just allowed them, what we do is at the end is we take a video as well, so that they can then sort of take it upstairs to the execs and show them, look, this is our bot in action, really. This is what the temps used to do. This is now a bot doing it. And it's very powerful. And it sort of opens the minds of the exec team then, who then sort of start to think, oh, okay, hang on, how can this be applied across different areas of the organization? So there's another one here, which is a bit more, again, of a POV. This is for compliance certificates. So again, it's gas and boiler servicing and things like that. And really, this is just an example of a team that were very bored of doing the virtual rubber stamping of gas and boiler certificates and didn't want to do it anymore. There was plenty of other things. It was one of those teams that had 10 things on their list of other stuff that they would like to be doing to advance the organization, but couldn't because they were sort of bogged down in administration tasks. So again, it was another 3 month project. We came in, we automated that for them. But then what we do is we often work with teams to go, right, okay, what is it that you're going to be doing once we've automated this? So we're called Human Plus, and we believe in putting the human at the center of automation. And one of the things that you should be doing on any intelligent automation project is working out what are the people going to do when we've automated this. And that is where you get the real transformation. It's, can we put them into an R&D space? Can we get them working on customer services? What proactive things that push the organization forward we're going to get these people doing once we've automated it? Something else I wanted to come on to here, actually, I'm going to come back to that one in a moment, but I gave you an example of a couple of case studies there, but I want to talk about the NHS and what they've been doing, because for all their faults, they are actually pretty damn advanced in intelligent automation. There's been some excellent work going on in the NHS over the last 2 years, really. So there's 52 trusts in the UK that have been working on intelligent automation for about 2 years. They all use the same platform. It's the Blue Prism one that I mentioned before. There are trusts that use other different ones as well. And what they've done is really quite genius, is they've all automated things, and it started very disparate and very separate. So one has automated, so East Suffolk and North Essex, they automated appointment booking. So they've saved about £1.5 million a year, because what they've got is, for all of their doctors, if you were to cancel an appointment, the bot picks that up and then it automatically texts a bunch of people on the list to see if they can take the appointment instead. So that the doctor never has a gap. And they just the bots are constantly working in the background to fill those gaps as people text in and text out saying, yes, I can make it, no, I can't, and things like that. So they did that. There's some clinical coding that's been automated. There's some back office clerical stuff that's been automated. But what they've done is they've created this, which is the NHS Digital Exchange. And obviously it sits online. And every time a trust automates something, they put it into this digital exchange. You all sign up to it. You have to be very open when you're working with it. And that means that you can download any automation that has already been built that uses the same systems as you have in the NHS. It's taken them a lot of work to get here. It's taken a couple of people like Darren Atkins and James Davis, a lot of dedicated time that they've put in to build this. But for me, this is a picture of what I think the housing space could get to in a couple of years. And that's one of the things we've been discussing with the Advanced Group, is if you guys are going on this automation journey, are you open to creating a digital exchange where you can share assets between you and things like that? Because that will really move the dial for the whole industry, and really expedite you. We can talk some people through about what that looks like and things like that, and any commercials arranged involved. But I mean, for the NHS one, it's quid pro quo. You can't charge anyone and nobody can charge you. So it works very well. You generally have to be using the same systems, but again, a lot of you are using the same systems in the housing space. So I think for me, this has been something that I really want to see happen as part of this intelligent automation network. And I think it's worth bearing in mind. It's taken them 2 years to do this. Like it's a lot of hard graft has gone into it to get to this space, but very worthwhile. So just to skip back to give you an example of some of the things that they're doing. So COVID-19, I know we've had enough of COVID, but I just thought it was topical, so I'd put this one in there. So the antibody testing and things like that. If you do have a quick read of this slide, it's really quite a basic process, but it's one that needed to happen almost overnight. So this is about the antibody testing and sending out the results. So this was for One Trust. And basically what they did, they already had the platform in, they'd already automated about 10, 20 things, and they had an automation team of 3 people already in their organization. So overnight, it took them 48 hours actually, they were able to automate this process. And 48 hours later, it was processing 4,000 requests a day. Everybody else that didn't have that was in the process of hiring temp staff to come in to gather up bits of digital data from around the place and sort of manually enter these results from one system to another. So they were like head and shoulders above because they already had the digital workers in play. They already had people that knew how to work it. It was a really good example of if you do adopt intelligent automation, its agility and your agility as an organization to react to things like COVID are just far advanced. We're doing some work at the moment with Kettering General Hospital for the COVID SITREP process. And what that is, every hospital in the country has to declare, as we all see on the news, or they've stopped the daily briefings, but if you check the websites, all the COVID numbers that are processed on there. So how that starts is every hospital has to take a look at how many ventilators are being used, how many beds are being used, how many staff have COVID, how many patients have COVID. And that started off as nurses and clerical staff with bits of paper recording that information, putting it into a spreadsheet, emailing that spreadsheet to digital health, and then they send that up to number 10, and then number 10 rolls it all up and reports the numbers. What we've done is we've automated that process. That took about 9 weeks for that one. So for Kettering General Hospital, we've rolled that out so that it's now fully live, and they don't have to involve any staff in collating those numbers, and it takes the data straight from HR systems and ventilator systems and things like that. So it's really put them in a good space. We're just about to put that on the digital exchange and sort of publicize it as much as possible in the hope that other hospitals then can download that and start using that use the same systems as Kettering. So just another example how sort of automation works very well in the singular, but together you can get a lot more change happening throughout your industry. So that is me. I will pass you over to Andrew. If anybody's got any questions before Andrew starts, if that's all right. If not, we can do them at the end.
Those last bits.
You just unshare your screen, David, then I can share mine.
In the NH, I think it would be good to catch up at the end of this then, just around what you've just talked about. I think there's certainly some interest in creating a housing digital exchange and understanding about that. So that'd be good to pick up later on.
Yeah, no problem.
Brilliant. Okay, so hopefully people can see my screen. So just let me introduce myself first of all. My name's Andrew Burgess. I'm an independent advisor on artificial intelligence. My company is called Greenhouse Intelligence. I'm the author of the Executive Guide to Artificial Intelligence, which was published about 1.5 years ago, which is really a guide for business people about how to start their AI journey, available at all good bookstores. I'm also a speaker at conferences. I spoke at the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Artificial Intelligence last year. I'm a visiting senior fellow in RPA and AI at Loughborough University, and also expert in residence at Imperial College's Enterprise Lab, and also write for various journals, which you can see there as well. But in terms of kind of the real work, I've got a number of different clients, which you can see there, including some housing associations such as Forviva, also Stonewater, which we work with David on, and also I advise the Natural History Museum as well on their AI strategy as well. But that's probably enough about me. I want to describe what artificial intelligence is, and if you look in the dictionary, this is what it tells you: the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks normally requiring human intelligence, which is fine as a definition, but it's a little bit circular because it talks about intelligence, and that's if we wanted to talk about what intelligence is, then we'd be here for the rest of the day. So another way of looking at it, if you want to think about some of the jargon that's used that you may have heard about, there's artificial intelligence, there's machine learning, deep learning. So just to kind of put those in context, first of all, Artificial intelligence is really the kind of catch-all term for everything to do with machines that, as I say, try to mimic human thought. And AI has been around since the 1950s in various forms, but obviously much simpler than it is today. But around about the 1980s, 1990s, along came machine learning. And I'll explain a little bit about what machine learning is in a second. But machine learning is kind of the thing that's the hot topic at the moment around artificial intelligence. So a lot of what you hear about AI will be machine learning, but it's not all machine learning. So think of it as a subset. And then deep learning is kind of a subset of machine learning. And deep learning is really just more complex machine learning. So what we've been able to do is, as computers have got faster and data has got much cheaper to store, etc., being able to do many more complex things with the algorithms, which just means that we've got, it's effectively more layers in the neural network, but that, it's just a more complex version of machine learning. And so by machine learning, I've tried to put it down into something that's very, very simple to kind of explain it as a non-technical way as possible. So the idea with AI and machine learning is you feed lots of data in. It then learns the patterns within that data, and the data could be images, it could be text, it could be sounds, it could be anything, but it learns the patterns within that really on a probabilistic approach. So it tries to generalize and find the patterns rather than looking for specific things. And by doing that, it's able to create a model of what those patterns are. And you might have heard around algorithms. So this kind of creating algorithms based on all of this data. So once you've got the algorithm model ready, then you can use that to make predictions about new data. So for example, if you wanted to recognize pictures of dogs in images, you would have fed in lots of data which have been images of dogs, all which would have been labeled as dog, and ideally lots of other images that didn't have dogs in that were labeled not dog. And the AI would learn the characteristics of those images that identified it as a dog. It creates the algorithm. So when you feed in a new picture of a dog, it's able to compare the patterns within those, and it's only just comparing pixels with pixels of the images you've had before to give an estimate, a confidence level of how likely this is to be of a dog. So that's really how AI works, but it could be on data, it could be on numbers, it could be on words, it could be on anything. But that's kind of the most simplest way of explaining it. But I think rather than think about how it works, I think it's much better to understand what it can do. So this diagram here, I'm going to build up over a few minutes, but it describes the capabilities of AI. So there's three main meta objectives that AI tries to achieve. The first one is about capturing information. Once we've captured that information, we want to understand what is happening. Once we understand what is happening, then we'd like to understand why something's happening as well. And within each of those, got different capabilities, but they all act on either unstructured data or structured data. Unstructured data, as said, it's things like images, it's sounds, it's free-form text, those sorts of things. Structured data would be web forms, databases, spreadsheets, etc. And it's important to note and bear in mind from what David was saying, if you're using RPA, the robots need structured data to manage them. So all the capabilities within this first block are taking unstructured data or big structured data and making those structured or much more easy to understand, so that the robots can then manage that if that's the process you're going through. So it could be, for instance, image recognition. So as I mentioned earlier about recognizing pictures of dogs, but it could be lots of other things. I'll give you some examples of those in a minute. It could be sounds, so speech recognition here. And when I talk about speech recognition, I'm just talking about understanding what words are being spoken. I'm not yet thinking about what the person is trying to say, what the intent of what they're trying to say is, because that comes into what is happening. At the moment, I'm just trying to understand what words are being said. And then we've got search, and this is the ability for AI to classify documents, which could be, for example, if you've got contracts, it could classify them as employment contracts or lease contracts or commercial contracts, for example. It can also extract data from those documents as well. so the metadata from them. And again, this is kind of where the overlap between AI and intelligent automation comes in, because if you can extract data from these free-form text, and then that's then structured, then you can feed that into robots to then manage forward. And then for the unstructured data, if you've got lots and lots of data, i.e. big data, and you want to make sense of it, then AI is very good at doing that. It can start to look at the patterns and the correlation between that data, within that data, and create clusters of information. So once we've got that, then we want to understand what's happening, and a lot of type of word type things go through what's called natural language understanding or natural language processing, commonly used in chatbots. So this is where we're looking at the intent for what somebody's trying to do. So we've got the words, whether they're typed or spoken, and then those go into the chatbot, and the natural language understanding will try and understand what the person wants, and also reply using natural language as well. Then we've got reasoning and problem solving, and that's where you've got a specific outcome that you want to achieve. And the AI is very good at taking all the different options, all the different alternatives, and very quickly finding the ideal solution for that. So, classic example would be through route navigation. Want to get from A to B, all the different routes. AI comes to that conclusion intelligently and quickly. But it could be, if you use a topical subject looking for drug discovery, looking for new drugs. Again, it can look at lots of different options and come to that solution very, very quickly. Different types of molecules, how they react with things as well is a typical use of this sort of thing. And then finally, in this section, we've got prediction. So what's going to happen next? And this is particularly used with that clustering data. So if you think about Amazon, you've bought a book, it's put you in a particular cluster, therefore it's trying to predict what book you're going to buy next, so it can make a recommendation to you. So very simple outcome for that, but lots of very clever maths happening in the background to do all that matching around you. So those are all capabilities of AI that are available today. You can go out and you can buy them, you can build them. But when we come to why it's happening, this is where we get into the realms of science fiction, really. There is some stuff going on in labs around AI trying to be cognitive, trying to have the understanding that we would normally associate with human brains, but we're not there yet. So if any software vendor comes up to you and says their software has cognition and understanding, then they're going to be lying, because it just doesn't exist at the moment. What they're likely to have is a combination of those narrow AI capabilities that kind of give the impression of cognition or understanding, but doesn't actually have it as well. So for example, if you got, go back to the picture of my dog here that we're trying to recognize, the AI, the image recognition algorithm can't do speech recognition, and it can't do prediction, it can't do any of those. It's a very specific algorithm, to the point where an image recognition model that's been trained on dogs can't recognize cats. It'd have to be retrained to recognize pictures of cats. So very, very narrow capabilities. But what you can do is you can combine these different narrow capabilities into something that's useful, but is essentially not intelligent as such. That's why it's called AI. So that's kind of a framework of AI to give you a feel for the capabilities of AI. But I'll try and bring those to life with some AI case studies. The first one is quite useful because it's really an intelligent automation example. But a while ago, with a company that I worked with, we automated the claims process for couriers. So if you send a parcel through a courier and it gets damaged or lost, you submit a claim, and they kind of assess the claim and give you your money back or whatever it is. And there was a very long process. It used to take about 6 weeks. Automated, particularly the front end piece through RPA, because it's quite easy, well, relatively easy, because you just have to compare, the operating system that's sending the stuff out with the system that says whether something's arrived or not, and compare the two, and you can very quickly come to an answer. The only thing that we couldn't do in this particular case was where the parcel was damaged. But you can imagine, using image recognition, you can train the system to identify damaged packages and undamaged packages. so that it can then make that assessment itself, and then the robots can kind of carry on saying, yes, we accept the claim or we don't accept the claim. So it's a good use of RPA and image recognition together there. And I just wanted to quickly mention another case of image recognition here, which is only in the news this morning. Amazon have announced a new bit of technology called Amazon's Panorama. And essentially it's a little black box, as you can see there, that fits within your IP camera system, should you have one in your office. And what it's meant to do is identify if people are wearing masks or not, and also whether they're social distancing as well. So in theory, quite a good use of image recognition from a health and safety point of view, but obviously there's been a huge backlash from privacy concerns about what else it's kind of or capable of tracking as well. There's no facial recognition built into this, but there's not to say that other people can't do that. So interesting, very relevant case there. But I think for the housing sector, here's a really good example using drone footage, and by training the system to recognize the things that you see in here, so the things like roofs, trees, vehicles, even manhole covers, it's able to then very quickly give you a view of those neighborhoods and any particular issues, for example, trees that are overhanging, etc. But again, it was just trained through lots and lots of drone images, but then can be used to effectively recognize those things from any other images that you pull into it as well. And also from a housing maintenance point of view, you can use image recognition on things like boilers to identify particular components. And if you extend that a bit further, you can think of it around using augmented reality as well to help the engineer fix the issue, or to connect him with an expert engineer as well to help him fix that as well. So some good uses in the housing association sector. When we look at speech recognition, everyone's got speech recognition on their phones, whether it's Siri or Cortana or Alexa, etc. But it's probably quite useful in your contact center. So here's an example of an AI that effectively listens into the conversations between customers and the human agents, and it will start to highlight where there's potentially issues there. So when the agent has forgot to say that the call's been recorded, that will get highlighted as amber. If the customer is starting to threaten legal action, for example, then it flashes red. And if you're the supervisor for that contact center, then you can very quickly intervene if you need to help the agent out. Or later on, you can use it as training material to help the agent then become a better agent. But essentially, it's just transcribing the words that are being spoken in real time. Then we talk about search. So it's the ability to extract data from documents, and this is kind of that overlap between AI and intelligent automation. So invoices is a classic example here. So you can train it to recognize all the different elements on an invoice, and rather than having a different template for every different types of invoice you get in, everyone knows that the address might be in the top left, the top right, anywhere on the invoice. But rather than having to have a template for each version of those, the AI starts to recognize what an address looks like and can find it on that document wherever it is, and also all the other line items, the VAT, the delivery costs, etc. So very good at taking those documents and extracting the data from that and putting it into your system of record. And equally, that could be contracts, slightly more unstructured than an invoice, but still there's the same sort of information in there: name of the parties, the value, the limits of liability, etc. is all in there. But so the AI is able to read through those, for example, identify the limits of liability clause and extract the value and put that into your system of record. The last bit on the capturing data piece is around clustering. So I already mentioned Amazon. It's making some very good recommendations there in the middle. A bit of subliminal advertising for you. But as I say, use that clustering to make predictions. And a client that I worked with recently, although it's not really in the housing sector, but you can extend it to that, is in the telecom sector, where we were looking at predicting failure of actually the cabinets at the bottom of telecoms masts. The cabinet fails and the mast fails and the network goes down. So we're able to look at smart meter data going into the cabinet and the historical ticket data to then predict when these particular units were going to fail. So you can imagine doing that with housing, either whether it's a specific component like a boiler, or it's something bigger like a roof, etc. But if you can understand the characteristics of those and what makes them fail, then you can start to predict those, so you can become a much more proactive organization than a reactive one. And you can do that as well with your tenants. And one of the things I'm working with one of my housing association clients at the moment is predicting rent arrears. So you're taking the data from all the interactions that the tenant might have with you. So obviously the rent data, the payment data, but also the interactions with the contact center and also the interactions with the assets team as well. So perhaps they're starting to refuse access to the team to fix their boiler. Again, that might be a signal that the house that they want to avoid contact, and maybe they're not going to be able to pay their rent. So if you can start to predict the rent arrears before it happens, then you can intervene early and stop people getting onto that slippery slope of arrears, which obviously ends, or can end in eviction and homelessness for them. So it's a very valuable thing that you can do very early on in the process. Natural language understanding, as I said, is often used in chatbots. This is one of the more advanced chatbots called Amelia by IPsoft. The avatar piece is pure window dressing. The clever bit is actually the chat bit there, but you're able to ask it questions in natural language, and it's able to reply based on its corpus of knowledge, whatever that may be, if it's IT or HR or whatever. But there's very specific examples that you can use in the housing sector. So this is one which is around booking repairs or booking a plumber here. So as long as they're integrated into your housing management system, then it's a very good way for your tenants to interact with you, and you can push that through Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or whatever channel you want, or on your website as well. Problem solving gets really interesting here, and I think the best way to explain the problem solving optimization capability of AI is by the power of Space Invaders. So what you see here is an AI playing Space Invaders, and the company that built this, called DeepMind, it's owned by Google, based in London, probably one of the preeminent AI companies in the world. They didn't train this AI to play Space Invaders. All they did was gave it a target, which is maximize that number in the top left-hand corner, i.e. score as many points as possible. And by the essentially extreme trial and error, it learns how to play Space Invaders. So if it hides behind the barriers, it doesn't get shot, but it doesn't score any points. But if it comes out and shoots the Space Invaders, it scores points. And if it shoots the big red guy at the top, it scores even more points. So it eventually learns how to play Space Invaders from this point of view, and it gets better than playing a human, as long as it can plays enough games. And you may have seen in the news a while ago, they used exactly the same idea. That the concept's called reinforcement learning because it's reward based, but they trained an AI called AlphaGo to play the game of Go. It's a Chinese game, very, very complex game. It's a 19 by 19 board, so the number of possible moves on a Go board is greater than the number of atoms in the universe. But they managed to train the AI to play this, and they played the best player in the world at the time, Lee Stoll, and they beat him 4 games to 1 in the end. So good use of AI, but not necessarily very practical for us. So if we think about how that might be applied to the housing sector, this is a map. It's actually fire instance, but it could be anything. It could be repairs, it could be ASBs, etc. But by understanding, well, first of all, you can try and predict where those are, as we talked about before. So you can see, where the ASB might be, or where the repair might be. But once you've done that, then you might want to know where the optimum place to put your neighborhood offices. because you don't want them kind of spread evenly across your geography. You want them closer to where the most demand is. So you can use AI to kind of map that out. Or even if you've got mobile teams, if you talk about your repairs team, you might want to tell them where to park for the time being, in order to be close enough to the events before they happen. So good use of problem solving there. And then the last slide I wanted to show you on this is really to kind of sum up the benefits from AI. And there's a number of those. It covers a lot of different areas, but I think one of the biggest ones is around customer satisfaction. So you can get improved service quality and responsiveness because you're being proactive. There's obviously cost reduction. Some of that could be through less labor, but that's really the home ground of RPA. But really around process efficiencies, where you get cost reduction through AI. You can get risk mitigation because you've got more improved and more comprehensive monitoring and assessment of your risk. You can have loss mitigation through improved debt recovery and fraud detection. And I think a particularly good one with AI, gets a lot of benefits through revenue generation. And this can be through cross-selling and upselling, and being able to offer new services that you weren't able to offer before. And finally, the rather clunkily named revenue leakage mitigation. And this is to stop revenue leaving your business that you might have had already. So a good example of that is reduced customer churn, or how to stop people using the services that they're paying you for. Again, you can start to predict when those are going to happen before even the customer might know they're going to happen. So you can intervene early and make sure that you keep them on board. So hopefully that's a run through of AI and some good use cases of that. Are there any questions? Sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat piece, so I don't know if any chat messages have come up. But Jenny, perhaps you can.
Yeah, there's nothing specific at the moment. There's one or two that relates back to David's presentation, which we can either pick up now or just pick up after. Do you want to do that now?
Go for it now.
That might give us more other questions. So, Nick, do you want to ask your question about the PDFs?
Yeah, I was just wondering how accurate the bot was for the optical character recognition side of things, of reading various PDFs. We might have different like handwritten ones, or not all the same kind of templates, slight variations. Is it smart enough to handle slight variations?
Yeah, you're right. Not all PDFs are equal. So what we do is take a sample subset at the start, and sort of within a day we can run them through and basically tell how accurate it's going to be and what needs improvement. But you're right, it's all about the image quality. So normally if it's an emailed PDF, especially if it's come from a system, very high accuracy. If it's something that's been sort of photocopied time and time again and has handwritten stuff on it, you're going to get less accuracy. There are certain things you can do to tweak the quality of a PDF. So we'd take a look at that as well. But yeah, you're totally right. It's something that we would check up front, because there's no point building entire automation out. It's the age-old garbage in, garbage out. If we're just going to be pumping loads of really terrible quality PDFs in the front of it, and the accuracy will never get improved.
And
the other thing on that is variability as well. So how consistent are the forms that you're doing? So the more consistent they are, the easier they are to train. Obviously, if everyone's looking different, then it's much more difficult to train.
Nick, you had a supplementary one, didn't you, as well, around the data quality?
That might have been a different Nick.
Different Nick. That was
sorry, my apologies.
Yeah. So I guess in common with lots of housing associations, we have lots of data quality issues in our source data, right? Which would obviously be problematic if you're trying to train AI against data which is not of optimal standard to start with. Just wondering about your experiences in using things like process automation and AI to analyze and suggest data quality improvements in automated pipelines, and if that's something you'd come across, and how that worked out for you.
Yeah, so sorry David. So I think the first thing to say with AI is the data doesn't have to be 100% correct. So because AI generalizes over the data, it's looking for the patterns, as I said before. So if it's not 100% correct, that doesn't necessarily matter. What you've got to understand is, though, say it's 80% correct, what you've got to make sure is the 20% isn't material to what you're trying to model. So if the 20% is kind of, you know, the core bit, then that's going to make a difference. If the 20% that's wrong is you know, probably the same as the 80% that's correct, then the AI is still going to do a good job. In terms of getting the data to the right quality, there's a number of things you can do. There are tools now where, you know, there's lots of data prep tools. So you can put the data in, it will then assess the level of data that's missing, suggest ways that you can supplement the data. So it might be that, you know, if you can guess some of the data or evaluate some of the data. So by looking at people's names, you can work out their gender. You know, there's things you can actually improve the data through that as well. And I think the bit from bringing in RPA is that you can use RPA to actually help pre-process some of that data as well, to help you bring in different data sources as well. And, you know, maybe there's some data mapping you need to do as well. So you can use RPA for that.
Sure. I think one of our potential uses of RPA is to try and reduce people manually doing things with data and introducing errors. That's something that I'm really interested in, is automating that data flow end to end with appropriate approvals by the right people during that journey to take people's fingers off keyboards effectively.
That's an ideal use case for RPA. So I was chatting to somebody last week, actually, just started, new job, very senior position, was sort of like, right, I'm going to wow them. We're going to do this big artificial intelligence program. We're going to sort of revolutionize the organization. And we sort of spoke about a week later, and he was like, not doing that. Nothing's in the cloud, and everything is in siloed data forms on premise. So for me, it was like, we were just talking about, you're going to have to go back to the basics and add a sort of 6-month project to the start of it, which is probably using RPA to go in, take a look at these disparate data sets, use RPA to cleanse the data, then store it in the cloud. Only then will you have a sort of super successful AI project. At the moment, I mean, Andrew can talk to this a bit more than I can, but we were really just talking about how RPA can be used pre-AI to help with some of those accuracy problems. And then, as you say, what you want to do is automate that process so that you don't have, having cleaned all your data, get bad data put back into it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Okay, I think that's questions today. Has anyone got anything else? Is this prompting any other thoughts? I can see people busily making notes, which is good. Okay, should we jump onto the next one then? Just
yeah, so I just wanted to cover in a couple of slides. As Jenny said, we kind of split the Ian group into two, beginners and advanced, and hopefully those are terms you're comfortable with. But the advanced team is really people that have started their journey already, so they've got an idea of what IA and AI are. So we kind of skip that bit, and now we're on to kind of the where are the opportunities, etc. So, and we just had this session this morning, so I just thought, kind of hot off the press, this is what to give you a feel of what's to come as this journey goes forward. This is it's difficult to read. You don't need to look at the details too much, but we used a tool called Mural, which is like an online whiteboard, and we went through what people's previous experiences were with AI and IA. We looked at what their pain points and their objectives might be, and then identified the opportunities for using these technologies within their organizations. And they're all color coded against which department they came from. And then we had a vote to find out the opportunities that people were most interested in following, and created a shortlist. And the shortlist at the moment looks like this. This is, let's say, fresh off the press. So David and I are going to review this and kind of mold it into something that we can then take as the input into the next session. But some of that's around predicting rent arrears, which I've mentioned before. So that's an AI particular application. Automating the finance transactions. So that's very much focused around RPA. The two blue ones are around net zero carbon. So we need to kind of look into that a bit more detail about what technologies will come there. But I think that's a problem that every housing association is going to have coming up. So it's obviously a good one that to look into. And then finally around automating compliance and data processes, and also linking those to IoT sensors as well. So that's a bit of RPA, a bit of AI, and a bit of IoT as well, to use all the acronyms in one. But those are kind of where we're looking at now with the advanced group. So as this group develops, we'll be coming into the same sort of process, and then either joining the beginning group up with the advanced group, or kind of developing your own opportunity through that as well. So just wanted to give you a feel for what happened this morning. So I'll stop sharing. I'll hand back to Jenny, I think, because we've got about 5 minutes left.
Yes. I thought you were going to say something, David. Is that no? Okay, so if I just talk through the future sessions. So some of you have already joined up to Ian, and some of you haven't yet. If you haven't, I'd really encourage you to sign up to the network and to DIN as well, and I can send you more details on that if you want. Really, for the whole network, this is our inductions day, so it's been very much around us talking to you, but we really want to be able to get you much more involved in this, so you really do get out what you put in. We want this network to be interactive, as we said, and we want to keep sharing. So that's whether that's articles, personal experiences, learnings from your business or out of sector. Could be something that you read that you want to be able to share, and any other feedback, either directly to me or through what we're looking to be able to set up with you. So that is a WhatsApp group. So in the original communications that we'd sent out to be able to start the Ian network, it was concluded that WhatsApp, from those that filled in the questionnaire, would be the best way of doing that. So for those of you that join up with Ian, that are happy to share your mobile, we will get that set up in the next week to be able to then keep that interaction going through the in between meetings. For those of you that join up, we'll be arranging a short meeting with you that over the next 3 to 4 months, so we can spend more in-depth time with you and learn more about what you'd like to be able to start looking at on your AI and IA journey. And you'll also be receiving invites during December for the rest of the year. Now, at the moment, we've got 2 joint sessions in that will be with the advanced group, one in March and one in December, but we'll get these dates sent out to you with the Zoom links in there. So that's really the main bit for today. What questions have you got has anyone got any questions they want to ask now on anything you've heard or seen today?
I'm assuming we're relatively technology agnostic. As you said before, we're not bothered if we're going to be using Blue Prism or Power Apps or whatever
Not
tool
at all.
we happen to have available.
Absolutely anything at all. Right tool for the job, really. We're partnered with all of them, I suppose. Microsoft UiPath, Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, and things like that. But if there's other ones, then you're absolutely not held to the technology. I'm interested in discussing it at some point as well, because we're seeing Microsoft just come in to the RPA space now, which is really interesting. My personal premonition is that it's going to be a sort of £6 a month per user thing that will end up being added to Microsoft Office within 12 months. Again, just a personal view is that it's not very good at the moment at all, but I do know Microsoft, and I do know that give it 12 months and it will be probably one of the better ones on the market. So I had an interesting meeting yesterday with both Blue Prism and Microsoft about how they're working together at the moment and things like that. So we can share some of that stuff at a later date.
I think the focus very much on here is as well is for there is really no stupid questions for a lot of people. This is the start of the journey, and there isn't any stupid questions. So this is what the idea of the network is that we learn and grow together, and to be able to help you on that journey. So so there's no questions now. We're nearly at the end of the session anyway. So thank you for attending, and thank you very much to Andrew and Davy's time and insight today. Both really enjoyable presentations. And contact me if you've got any questions or queries out of today. And hopefully we look to seeing you all in January for the session then.
Jenny, I did raise my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
It's okay. No, it's fine. It's Stephen at Together Housing, and it was just really to get a feel for how advanced the advanced group, because we've done when I've heard the session this afternoon, I realised that we're probably we may be in the advanced group. We've done quite a bit of work in terms of We've got a data scientist in the organisation. We've come up with predictive models for arrears. So it's like, from what I've heard, it sounds like we maybe are in the advanced group. But when I was thinking which session should I attend, I plumped for this one, thinking the ones might be like doing something cool like Amazon are doing or whatever.
We took difficult trying to be able to figure out what we term the two networks, to be honest, without people to describe them. But basically, if people have already started that journey, then we've put them in an advanced group just because the fact they've already got a project starting or started. And actually, whereas the beginners is really, we haven't got anything started. We're either interested or we've got it mapped out in the next 12 months. We just want to understand more as we go through. So, and we can switch people between them. There isn't an issue. It's one network. We've just split it into two. So,
and the power is in the network, because I'd be surprised, without being disrespectful to colleagues, if the advanced ones are, a million miles away from where the beginners are. Really,
no,
the power is in the network.
There are 6 months or 9 months probably ahead of where other people are, and it's new to the whole sector. So it's, as Andrew and David already said, this may end up merging into one network anyway. But what we wanted to ensure is that we position this at the start of where everybody is. Otherwise, we end up, you only need to be slightly out, and then actually it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So we're just trying to be able to pitch it at the right level. So we can have a chat afterwards, and again, anybody else, it's fine to be able to then flit around.
Yeah, thank you, thanks. But it's been a good session. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? No. That's brilliant then. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.